My name is Serafina and I'm 55 years old. If somebody ever asked me how I envisaged the day my daughter has graduated from college, I guarantee I never imagined what occurred today. In a comfortable private room of an expensive French restaurant in downtown Savannah, the clinking of glasses, bursts of laughter flooded the air. Friends and relatives, approximately 50 individuals had assembled to congratulate Sophia, my only kid, the girl with beautiful eyes and the grin that made me proud more than anything else in the world. I sat next to So. My heart is full of delight until Chasing, my spouse of 26 years, stood up. He lifted the champagne glass, as if going to make a little toast to our daughter. Everyone grew silent, all eyes focused on him. However, instead of congratulations, I heard, I chose to start a new life without Bella. The room froze suddenly, and cutlery clattered to a standstill. A few shocked voices broke the quiet. I heard a gasp behind me. I just sat there blinking once. Were on me waiting for an explosion. Shouting. Cries. Perhaps a big smack as in the movies. Chase stayed standing. His glass was wobbling slightly in his palm. Dare me to respond. But I did not give him the satisfaction. I smiled calmly. Chase took a half-inch step back when he saw the calm smile. I carefully put my napkin on the table. I stood up. I retrieved a cream-colored envelope from my handbag. I laid it in front of him, as nonchalantly as if it were the bill for supper. "This is a gift for you," I said. My voice is steady and clear enough for everyone to hear. Sophia turned and looked at me. Her huge eyes were filled with tears. She was still wearing her graduation hat, the pastel blue dress we carefully selected jointly only last week, now looked out of place in the thick atmosphere. I bent down and kissed her forehead, whispering, "I'm proud of you. Today is your day. Do not let anyone steal it." I straightened up and looked around the room. Familiar faces. People who had previously came to our house for Christmas dinners, who had before gathered around my kitchen table. Laughing at foolish jokes is now avoided. My gaze, like guilty youngsters found doing something wrong. Because they knew. They all knew. Chase was seeing a lady over 20 years younger. A girl called Lauren, who used to call me sis every time she came. I took deep breaths. I put on the best pleasant grin I could manage, and said, "Please everyone, enjoy the remainder of the celebration. Have a good afternoon." Without waiting for a response, I turned and went out of the banquet room. My heels clicked on the marble floor, resounding through the room as a bell in a hushed church. I did not glance back. I didn't need to see their faces to know they were monitoring every move. The hefty diner door banged shut behind me. I finally let me exhale. Outside, the June heat of Georgia hit me with full force. But I embraced it. It reminded me that I was alive. I was still standing. Behind me, I heard the door fall open and Chase's voice, no longer confident but anxious. "Vil Mello, what are you doing? Are you crazy?" I carefully walked down the stone stairs. A frigid smile formed over my face. One Pursuit had never seen before. Because, throughout the years, I had played the role of the faithful wife quite well. He forgot who I truly was. A lady who has previously established a career from nothing, before giving it up to support his goal. I did not reply to the Pursuit screaming. I did not even peek back. I just tightened my grasp on the handbag, feeling the second envelope contains a copy of the divorce papers and documentation I had very carefully gathered. I vividly recall the extremely chilly winter day, when everything within me changed. It was a January evening. As I was examining the family's year-end expenses, Chase was not home again, and with the typical excuse of meeting customers in Hilton Head, I opened my bank statement. I aimed to skim through it before supper, but suddenly a little unexpected charge drew my attention. A jewelry business in Atlanta. I frowned. Chase never wore jewelry. I hadn't gotten any gifts from him in years. A chilly feeling of doom crept into my heart. I started paying close attention. More strange charges came up. Dinners in pricey restaurants, unexplained hotel bills, random flight tickets to cities. Pursuit is never discussed. I did not approach him, shout, or accuse. Instead, I silently documented everything. Dates, quantities, and details. A week after, I discovered Chase's lost iPad on the sofa. The screen was still illuminated, and a discussion was happening. Lauren's name flashed at the top, along with a rush of letters offering a new life. A house. At the beach and nights spent alone together. I closed the iPad with shaky hands. But my intellect was clearer than ever. If Chase believed I'd leave gently, he had chosen the wrong woman that night. When Chase arrived home, I welcomed him with my normal grin. I poured him a glass of wine and pretended nothing had changed. But internally, I had made up my mind. The next day, I met with Charlotte Reynolds, a divorce attorney I learned from a financial seminar a few years ago. Charlotte was crisp, no nonsense, and entirely discreet. Precisely what I wanted. In her sunny office, I set everything out. The money and messages, Chase's actions and my inner feelings. Charlotte just needed to hear half of the story. Before nodding, the first thing she said, "Check the prenuptial agreement." Grabbed a duplicate from the house safe. The pursuit had insisted on a document. Before we wedded, I had more assets than he did. I remembered a harsh sensation in my tongue. When I signed it, I had no idea that, more than 20 years later, the same paper would become my protection. Clause 14. If either party was discovered to have committed adultery during marriage, the other party would maintain the bulk of marital assets, including the house, retirement savings and investments. From that time forward, every night when Chase departed for his meetings, I spent hours looking through bills, bank transactions and emails, back up everything to a private hard drive. I hired a private detective named Jason, a childhood acquaintance of my brother, to track and chase as required. It did not take long for Jason to deliver photographs of pursuit. Lauren and I clasped hands at a resort where they checked in under false names. I was meticulous, methodical, treating every move like a chess game. I didn't want to just leave Chase. I wanted him to feel powerless, to taste betrayal he had casually inflicted on me. Over the previous year, I acquired sufficient proof over 3 months. During that moment, Chase continued portraying the perfect family man. Dinners with Sophia Sweet speaks about retirement goals. He didn't realize that every untruth, every glance away just strengthened my determination to ensure that everything was airtight. Charlotte encouraged me to wait till after Sophia's graduation. On one hand, I didn't want to mar my daughter's special day. On the other, I knew Chase would choose that moment to make his move, because he worried about looks rather than truth. I prepared the cream-colored envelope, loaded with Charlotte's meticulously crafted documentation. The divorce petition evidences adultery. A thorough list of assets to be split. According to the prenup, I placed it into my handbag this morning. I was ready. All I needed was for Chase to push himself over the edge, and he did not disappoint me. The sound of Chase's footsteps following me, his terrified voice called my name, only increased my determination with each step. I left behind years of blind loyalty walks toward a future I would no longer be enslaved by betrayal and hollow promises. The sound of Chase's sneakers being hammered frantically on the sidewalk as he pursued me. However, I did not slow down in my ears. I could hear his voice breaking. Every word left me outraged and terrified. "You cannot talk to me like way." I halted at the corner, under the sign of a little flower business, and turned around. Pursue raced up, gripping the envelope I'd left on the bed. Dinner quit table. It felt like it was the only thing that could save him. "What the hell is this?" Pursuit yelled, brandishing the envelope. I maintained my stare firm and unblinking. "Just giving you what you have worked so hard for all this time," I said casually. He ripped the packet open on the spot, pulling out the stack of papers within. His cheeks heated hot and then became pale. In a couple of seconds, I saw his hands quiver. He read the first sentences. "Proof of infidelity. How did you obtain all this?" he muttered, his voice breaking. I crossed my arms and said simply, "Sometimes it just takes one person to be negligent, and the other is patient." Chase pulled his head up, panic blazing through his eyes. "You You cannot use this against me. The prenuptial agreement expired long ago. I grinned, unable to conceal the hint of irony. You should have read it more attentively. Before you signed Clause 14 plainly states. It remains valid during the marriage. You insisted on it back then. Anxious about your assets today, ironically. It protects me. Chase looked at the file again. Crumpled a corner of the paper in his fist. As if that could alter reality. I didn't look away from his face. Watching the comfortable smugness crumble piece by piece. But what do I lose? He questioned. Almost choked. I cocked my head to contemplate the response. Even though I knew every detail by heart. The home in Savannah. Your share of our retirement funds. Roughly 70% of our joint investments. Regarding the personal account you believed you had hidden. I've already had it frozen. Chase stumbled back. Take a stride like if he had been hit. No way, he stuttered. Lauren and I had a plan. New house. New life. I cut him off. My voice calm yet keen as steel. Your new life pursuit will begin from a leased residence. A blocked bank account. The early summer breeze held a slight fragrance of flowers. From the business next door among that serene landscape. Chase seemed completely bewildered. Like a man who realized he had lost everything. In a single instant, he clutched the stack of papers closer. His eyes burning. You are destroying me, Bella. He rasped. No. I answered with an unyielding glance. You have been doing this to yourself for a long time. I'll simply let you deal with the repercussions. When a cab approached, I lifted my hand to flag it down. Not spare another second for the man. Motionless like a statue before me. As the automobile door flew open. Turn back one more time. Pursuit. I stated, my voice was low and final. I once loved you with all of my life. But you gave everything away for a fleeting illusion. From now on, you are on your own. I stepped into the. Maxine closed the door as the automobile drove away. Through the glass, I noticed Chase standing alone. Clutching the crumpled envelope. Sporting the puzzled expression of a guy. He had just lost his entire universe. Inside me, there was no fury, no pain, just a tremendous sensation of relief. I felt like I had finally removed a rusty suit of armor I had carried far too long. I knew there was a long journey ahead. The legal fight, the rumors, the questioning eyes. But I also knew I recovered the most valuable item of all. The right to my own life. I returned to my previous dwelling. Savannah's historic district. As the dusk light dropped. The red brick walls are gold. This house has formerly signified everything we had created together. Or so I had believed. Less than 1 hour after I stepped through the door, I heard a vehicle speed into the driveway. The front door swung open so fiercely that the hinges cracked. Chase blasted in, looking like a lost hurricane. The crumpled paper remained clasped in his fingers. Bella, he yelled frantically. We need to discuss right now. I stayed sitting on the living room sofa. The warm yellow lamplight produced gentle hues on the family photo wall. I shut my laptop and stared at him. Without a single flash of emotion. Sit down, I said. My speech was calm as if I were inviting a stranger. But Chase did not sit. He walked back and forth. Like a trapped beast. Yanking on his hair. Breathing frantically. You cannot do this. He eventually broke out. Pointing at me. As if looking for a bit of sympathy. Lauren and I were preparing to rent the Midtown apartment. They just called and stated. Why was the lease denied? I leaned back on the couch. Fingers interlocked peacefully. Because your credit file was flagged. I responded calmly to multiple dubious transactions. Prompted a system alert. The brokerage agency contacted our home number to check. I responded like a responsible wife would. Chase's eyes widened in disbelief. He opened his lips. But no words emerged. I proceeded, leaving him no time to respond. And that is not all. That personal account you thought you'd hidden so carefully. It is now frozen by a temporary court order. I smirked. Congrats, Chase. You have precisely 2 alternatives currently. Rely on the compassion of others. Start learning how to live humbly. Chase stumbled into the chair across from me. Elbows on his knees, hiding his head in his hands. I knew I'd remember this image for a long time. I simply desired a better life. He murmured, dazed. Lauren and I had plans. Bella. We wanted to start new, then start. I claimed my voice was soothing but razor keen. Begin by learning how to pay rent yourself. Pay your own electricity bills. Face your own consequences. He looked up. His cheeks heated scarlet. You're wrecking my life over a single mistake. I laughed dryly. A hollow tone without a trace of forgiveness. Error. I stressed every word. Forgetting your wife's birthday is a mistake. Leave a code. That eatery is a mistake. What you did was cheat. Hide money and plot to flee your family. Daughter's biggest day is not a mistake. That's a choice. She looked at me. Finally, recognizing that his customary justifications would receive no compassion. Here, I need money, he remarked as if expressing the obvious will solve anything. I crossed my arms, leaned back. You had a private account. Lauren, you had plans. But you don't have me or Sophia. Hearing Sophia's name made Chase shudder. As if he were hit in the chest. Does she know? He inquired, his voice cracking. Not yet, I said, but soon. And when she does, you will be the one to explain why. Her graduation day turned into a catastrophe. Chase sat frozen, as if the whole of his errors had finally destroyed him. I stood. I picked up my keys from the table. I will give you 2 days to pack your belongings. I claimed my voice was steady and final. Afterward, the locks will be replaced. You will need to locate another spot to begin your new life. I headed towards the door without looking back. I closed it behind me and left him alone, with nothing but heavy breathing and a frigid quiet that he could no longer fill. I drove directly to Diana's residence. Chase's sister, the only member of his family who had remained faithful to me. Her modest home has pastel blue shingles, sitting calmly among enormous oak trees. I arrived just outside of downtown. She was already waiting on the porch. Her face was pinched with concern. Are you okay? Diana inquired as soon as I got out of the car. Better than you believe, I stated. Diana gripped me fiercely, smiling strangely, without having to ask anything else. In that moment, I knew I had discovered the best spot to regroup. Sophia would meet me here later that night. After celebrating with her pals, I had texted her, reassured her that everything would be fine. She only needed to trust me. We were seated in the living room. I was enjoying mint tea when the doorbell rang frantically. Diana looked at me sharply, breaking the quiet. She laid down her cup and went to answer it. Heavy footsteps resonated over the hardwood floors. Chase and Lauren went inside. 2 storms traveling in opposite directions. Chase looked devastated, hollow-eyed. Meanwhile, Lauren, her blonde hair curled nicely. The pricey dress clings strangely. She scarcely dared to raise her head. I remained sitting waiting. Bella. Chase started, his voice strained from forced restraint. We need to talk. And we've talked enough. Lauren moved uneasily alongside him as I calmly answered. Her eyes darted around plainly. She had not expected this. Chase glanced to Diana as if seeking an ally. But she crossed her arms and blocked the entry into the living room. Refused to let them come any further. Sophia arrived through the rear door at that same time. Still in her navy graduation gown. Her high shoes were dusted with filth. Seeing the spectacle before her, she froze, her eyes flashing with rage. What are you doing here? Dad, Sophia requested. Her voice was harsher than I'd ever heard before. Dad, I simply wanted to explain everything. Chase stepped forward. Sophia lifted her hand to stop him. Explain what? She snapped. Explain. Why did you ruin my graduation day? Or why you betrayed Mom? And attempted to grab anything you could. Chase froze, his lips drawn in a tight line. Lauren touched his arm, as if to draw him back. But he shook his head. I made errors. Chase gulped out his voice, trembling. But I am still your father. Sophia. She glanced at him, her eyes full of disappointment. Don't use father to justify what you did. Sophia asked whether you had actually cared for family. You would not have chosen treachery now, of all days. The air became thicker, and Chase turned to Lauren, searching for agreement. Lauren had already stepped back. Her eyes shifted from ashamed to dubious. That money. Chase agreed to invest in our new apartment. Lawrence stuttered. You stated it was already moved. But, I just phoned the bank. The account was frozen. Thus it was all empty promises. Chase moved aside, avoiding her eyes. I remained sat, requiring no more words. Lauren gazed around the room. Then back at the pursuit. The revelation burst over her face. Like a shattered mirror. What more are you concealing from me? She questioned, her voice cracking. Chase said nothing, and there was quiet. Lauren understood. She gambled her future on a losing hand. I was such a fool. Lauren murmured. Her voice was trembling, before turning and fleeing out the door. Without waiting for Chase to speak another word. The door slammed shut, reverberating around the house. Sophia watched Lauren depart, then turned back to Chase. Her look was full of grief and disappointment. I am not sure whether I will ever be able to forgive you. She remarked, her voice was low and fatigued. But right now, I simply want you to leave. Chase opened his lips to say something, but then merely nodded and slowly headed toward the door. His shoulders were slumped as if he had lost everything. He previously took it for granted that the door would close again. Diana placed her hand on my shoulder. Give it a slight squeeze. Sophia arrived and sat near me, placing her head on my shoulder, like she used to when she was small. Neither of us said anything we didn't have to. The hush was no longer thick. It was the start of something new. An opportunity to rebuild from the ruins. We never imagined it could be restored. A preliminary hearing was planned. On a Wednesday morning at a tiny, historic courthouse in Chatham County. The Savannah sky that day was thick and dismal, with low clouds, echoing the dismal tone of those prepared to step in. A persistent legal struggle. I came with my lawyer, Charlotte Reynolds, the keen silver-haired woman, whose steady stare never wavered against any opponent. Chase also showed up, joined by a young lawyer whom I had never seen before. A kid who appeared to have recently graduated from law school. Awkwardly grasping a hefty stack of paperwork, Charlotte gave me a brief glance. Her lips curled into a slight smirk. Do not worry, she murmured. He's not Matt. So we took our seats at the plaintiff's table, while Chase sat opposite us. Looked nothing like the confident dude somebody once strolled into my life. 26 years ago. He averted my gaze, fidgeted with the worn strap of his watch. The judge is a stern-looking elderly woman. Arrived and called for the opening remarks. Charlotte began by setting everything down. The prenuptial agreement remained legal. Chase had violated the loyalty clause, and it was required to freeze the marital assets, to guarantee fairness in the future division. Chase's lawyer stood pale-faced. Your Honor, he started. His voice is little shaky. We contend that the prenup has expired with time, due to the absence of clear renewal terms. The judge raised her eyebrow, glanced through the file. Clause 17 plainly indicates the arrangement will stay in effect throughout their marriage, including any dissolution procedures. No expiration date is given. She shut the file with a harsh thump, making the entire courtroom fell quiet. The court considers the prenuptial agreement lawful. The plaintiff submitted adequate proof. A significant betrayal of faithfulness. Marital assets will be frozen during the litigation. I glanced across at Chase and she asserted firmly. He sank on his seat, appearing completely spent. The judge continued to discuss residence. Miss Bella Monroe is the plaintiff. Will have temporary, exclusive usage and administration of the marital residence, until a final decision is issued. The defendant shall have access to only his own account, limited to basic living costs. Chase's lawyer attempted to oppose. The judge lifted her hand to quiet him. I've studied the transaction records, personal expenses and evidence of financial misbehavior. This decision is essential to protect the plaintiff against additional damages if. Charlotte grinned slightly, as if she had foreseen every action. After the provisional decisions were announced, the judge delayed the hearing. The official trial would take place within 60 days. I rose, collecting my papers carefully, while Chase stayed motionless in his seat. As I left the courtroom, I hear his cautious footsteps follow me along the empty hallway. Bella P.L.S. He ultimately died. We once loved each other. I turned and met the eyes that had once convinced me nothing could ever bring us apart. Now they were overwhelmed with remorse. I adored you, Jace. But I love myself, too. And that love doesn't let me forgive treachery. I spoke calmly, devoid of resentment or animosity. Chase gazed at me. His mouth moved, as if looking for words. But nobody arrived, so he merely bowed his head. His shoulders drooping under the weight of his own terrible decisions. I turned aside, go along the hall with a peculiar sense of tranquility. Outside, light rain poured over the cobblestone streets, as if washing remove the relics of a life I no longer belonged to. News of our divorce traveled across our social circle, like a wildfire within weeks. Whispered rumor at parties transformed into indisputable fact. Chase Monroe was previously quite proud of his achievements. He had become a hollow shadow of himself. Shortly after the hearing, I heard that Lauren had left Chase. She packed her belongings, moved out of the temporary accommodation Chase fought to maintain, under financial strain. A common buddy then informed me that one night at a bar, Lauren had mumbled, "I did not sign up to love a broke man." The little company Chase said he would develop an empire. It immediately crumbled, having no financial skills and no one left to support him. Bad investments depleted what little he had left. Within 3 months, his office had a "for lease" sign, and the firm website was under repair. Buddies who used to salute him at every gathering. There are no more golf excursions. No more charity galas. Some acquaintances carefully reached out to me, but I kindly declined. I didn't need them, and they'd never truly needed me. While chasing, floundered amid the ruins of his own handiwork, I quietly restored my life. Starting with the tiniest things. I registered for a short financial counseling course for women at a nearby university, brushing up on my abilities, recovering my professional rhythm. I rented a tiny office in a historic building, downtown Savannah building. Its big windows overlook a bright park. On the window I posted a simple sign, Bella Monroe's Financial Transitions. I selected that name because I understood precisely what I wanted: to assist women in navigating big life transitions, including divorce, widowhood and job loss. Career changes I had once dreamed. Someone had held my hand throughout my saddest days. Now, I wanted to be that person for others. My first customer was a middle-aged woman. She had just lost her spouse. After 30 years of marriage, she sat across from me, holding a tissue. Her voice was trembling. She acknowledged her worry of losing financial control. "I'm not even sure where to start," she murmured, and I smiled warmly. I placed my hand on the file in front of me. "We will start precisely where you are," I said. "Take one step at a time. And you won't have to walk alone." Words travel rapidly from one customer LED to another. Divorce attorneys and therapists, even those who just knew me via rumor, started recommending clients my way. Within 6 months, I recruited an assistant, then a partner. One day while looking through documents at my workplace, I stumbled across an old photo of myself. Chase and Sophia pose in front of our house. During our first summer there, I gazed at it for a long while. There was no resentment, no remorse, just a strange, peaceful tranquility. Life was not the same. Nor was I. I was no longer the lady waiting impatiently for a spouse to return home. No longer the lady who neglected her own goals just to maintain appearances. On a late day with cobblestone streets bathed in the pink glory of sunset, Sophia stopped by the office. She had recently begun her new work in Charleston, but frequently came home on weekends to visit. "I'm extremely proud of you, Mama," Sophia murmured, hugging me tightly. I grinned, feeling a peaceful contentment sink deep within. A delight as strong and lasting. The ancient stones that bordered the streets. I had found my way back to myself. Chase had chosen his course, and I had selected my. The ultimate divorce trial took place on a chilly, early autumn morning. I entered the courtroom with Charlotte, wearing a basic. I'm wearing a light gray dress and feeling more peaceful than ever. All summer, I had prepared for this moment. Not simply to win, but to conclude this chapter. I still have every ounce of pride in me. Across the courtroom, Chase sat with a new lawyer. This time, an older, more experienced man. But Chase himself seemed completely spent. His outfit appeared baggy on his newly considerably slimmer body. The judge is the same, who had presided over the preliminary hearing, entered the courtroom. Her piercing gaze swept around the room. Before she started the case of Mrs. Bella Monroe versus Mr. Charles Monroe, she declared crisply. Charlotte stood and put forth the proof. Chase breached the prenuptial agreement, the hidden assets, and the exploitation of common finances for selfish reasons. Over a long time, transaction records, messages and photos. Everything was precisely arranged, leaving no room for argument. Chase alone had little to fight about. They just sought to ask for mercy, tossed about imprecise terms concerning their common history. Chase's emotional contributions to the family. When it was my turn to speak, I rose, holding my head high. For more than 2 decades, I said firmly, I invested all of my strength, time and trust in this family. I did not only raise our child and maintain our home, I also assumed every financial obligation. When my hubby failed, what I'm asking for today isn't retribution. I'm regaining what I made, and what I properly deserve. The room grew quiet following my statements. Even Chase had no arguments left. He merely looked at the floor. His fists tightened, as if attempting to confine something within. Finally, after 3 anxious hours, the judge gave the verdict. Given the obvious evidence, a breach of the prenuptial agreement, the court gives Mrs. Bella Monroe full ownership of the marital residence in Savannah, maintains her individual retirement funds, provides her 70% of the combined assets, includes investments and savings. Mr. Charles Monroe will keep just his own possessions, and the sum in his designated private account. I took a big breath when I heard those words. Not because I was celebrating a victory, but I finally felt the weight lifting off of me. Chase was still, as if locked in place. I looked at him one final time, feeling no animosity, only sorrow, for a guy who had lost everything. Consequence of his own lousy decisions. As I walked out of the courthouse, the gentle, autumn sunlight swept around me as a loving embrace. Charlotte gave my back a soft touch. Congratulations, Bella. She gave a little grin at the corner of her lips. You didn't just win assets. You regained your future. I just nodded in that moment. I realized life is not always fair. However, if you hold hard on your value, someday, justice will smile. That day, I did not go home immediately. I drove directly to my workplace, the modest place I had rented and fostered over all those difficult months. Inside, the desk was well arranged, with the sign stating, Bella Monroe. Financial transitions shone in the sunshine. A subtle reminder that I had risen from the ashes. I made a new planet with my own hands. Chase lost practically everything in their divorce. However, the biggest loss was not monetary or property. It was the trust and respect of family and friends, especially from his own daughter. As for me, I did not merely retake my life. I rediscovered myself, stronger, freer, and not defined by anybody else. I peered outside through the wide window, seeing the fall leaves whirl in the air, like a lovely dance. An old chapter had finally ended. Approximately a month after the last hearing, one late afternoon, I was closing up documents at the workplace. The phone rang, and the caller ID caused me to hesitate for a second. Chase. I let it ring a few more times before picking up. Ella's voice sounded harsh and tired. I understand you probably don't want to hear from me, but just allow me just a minute. I slumped back into my chair. I feel weirdly empty within. Go ahead, I said curtly. The bull was still there, and there was a long pause, as if he was looking for the correct words. I wrecked everything he eventually said. His voice was thick. And I lost you. I lost respect for myself after losing our daughter. I have nothing except remorse. I closed my eyes for a second. A part of me had wanted to hear this apology, but now that I heard it, I just felt relieved. No more suffering, no more rage, just a feeling of closure. I understand, I responded quietly. Chase hesitated, then added that I am not seeking for forgiveness. So I simply I just wanted to know if there's any possibility left for us. I'll change and start afresh. I opened my eyes and glanced out to the street, drenched in the golden color of sunset. And I knew my answer: no, Chase. I spoke, my voice softly but forceful. That door had closed a long time ago. I am no longer standing there waiting to open it. Chase was silent for a long time. I heard the breakdown in his hard breathing. You deserve better, he eventually remarked. For the first time, I felt he actually meant it. I hung up the phone, feeling no ripple in my emotions. The old tale has definitely finished. My life entered a new phase I had not even dared to imagine. My modest workplace developed rapidly, requiring me to rent a bigger place. Within barely 8 months, clients continued arriving. Women who were knocked down by life now sit across from me with optimism in their eyes. I didn't only assist them handle their money. I listened to their stories, encouraged them to plan for the future they originally feared it was lost. I became their steadying hand, the type of hand I used to aspire for. During my worst days, Sophia, my daughter, phoned routinely from Charleston. She had recently been promoted to oversee communications staff at her organization, and on every call, I could hear the unmistakable pride in her voice. You're my role model, Mama, Sophia whispered one evening. We sat on the porch sipping tea. Not because you survived everything, but you turned your loss into your strength. Those remarks matter more than any financial success. Were the best prize I could have ever gotten. One weekend, I took myself to Asheville, up in the highlands where autumn leaves. The hills are painted in bright reds, golds and oranges. Standing on the balcony of a nice little guest house, overlooking the lively valley, my heart felt wide open and entirely at ease. I originally believed that happiness required keeping a family intact at all costs, but now I understand. True happiness begins with choosing yourself, even if it costs you everything. Old dream Bella Monroe, who once dwelt under a man's shadow, had walked into light, crafting her own tale without anyone else's approval. I stepped back inside and opened my laptop, began creating a proposal for a new program, a series of free courses on financial management, following divorce for women in the neighborhood. I knew that there were ladies out there who needs a hand, a voice telling them that they are stronger than they believe. And this time, I would be that voice. Bella's tale is a compelling testimony to the strength of rebuilding. After betrayal, from a mom who gave all for her family, she rose anew after the painful betrayal, reclaiming her life through perseverance, dignity and knowledge. She teaches us that loss does not mean the end, but the start of a freer, a happier voyage. What are your thoughts on Bella's remarkable journey? Would you decide to go away, or forgive in her circumstances? Please share your ideas in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more inspiring tales about family and life.